for joining me as I go over the new moon phase. As I mentioned in my previous video, I've been doing moon ceremonies for the past 5 years, and I really felt like it was time to adapt my practice so that I could better support my intention setting process. So I really dove into the essence of what the new moon represents, and I'll be sharing its energy and how we can best use its energy to manifest whatever it is that we feel called to manifest. So before I get into that, I'd really like to explain what the moon is doing in space right now, just so that, apart from the moon being a concept, it's also a very real celestial body that rotates around the earth, and it waxes and wanes depending on its position to the earth and the sun. So during the new moon, the sun, the moon, and the earth are somewhat aligned. So there is a very strong gravitational pull because of that alignment. You'll notice during the new moon and full moon phases that the tides are much stronger and much bigger. It's because of that gravitational pull, and I like to believe that since we're also beings made up of mostly water as well, that it does impact us in that way too. So during the new moon, there is no light cast on the moon. It's completely dark, and I like to believe that it's a call for us to look deep within ourselves at the aspects that are hidden from us, and within that darkness there is the wisdom that we need to become our most authentic selves. So I really love the practice of the new moon because it helps us become aware of the aspects within ourselves that we don't even know exist within our subconscious and our unconscious minds. It also represents our emotional selves. So I don't know about you, but during the new moon and the full moon, I feel particularly emotional because I find that it peaks every time I find myself feeling very emotional. I'll look at the moon phase, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And which is a nice break, to be honest. I find that, at least from my own particular context, living in a Western society, that we often engage through our lives with our minds because that's what's taught and that is what is rewarded. And I've been doing endless work in therapy to really remember what it is to just feel my emotions, to just be, and how to exist outside of the parameters of my mind. And I believe that is the core message and lesson of the new moon, is feeling our emotions. And when I say feeling our emotions, I'm speaking about the sensations that emotions create in our bodies, not the words that we use to describe emotions. For example, the emotion of feeling embarrassed. When I feel embarrassed, at least, like, I find that my face flushes, I feel very hot and warm, like just right up in this area. That would be the sensation of embarrassment. And then again, embarrassment is how we intellectually conceptualize what sensations we're feeling. That is the label that we give it. So that becomes a very important aspect of the intention setting process for our manifestations, is not what we think we want to manifest, but rather what manifestation feels most aligned for us. And I find that when we manifest and when we set intentions in that way, it helps us get out of our mind. And our mind is often our ego because it collects all the data that we've absorbed throughout our lives. And our ego, at times, to best protect us, creates certain ideas and thoughts and beliefs around what we are deserving, not deserving of, what's safe, what's not safe. When we do it from a feeling-based practice, it's almost a guide of what you're actually naturally drawn to that sometimes your mind is not able to rationalize because of the protection that it's trying to provide to you. So in the book Lunar Abundance, Ezzie Spencer divided the phases of the moon, or described the phases of the moon, through an ancient Chinese philosophical concept, which you, or many of you, may be familiar with, which is yin and yang. Yin and yang provides a framework that describes ways of living or modes of operating. And keeping in mind, this may be a complete oversimplification, but how I understand yin and yang is how perceived dualities are actually a part of each other and form each other and influence each other. Many of us are familiar with the symbol of yin and yang, and you see there's like certain aspects within each aspect, even though it has like a greater representation of perhaps one energy, there's still a bit of it. For example, if we're looking at the luminaries, the sun and the moon, the sun represents yang and the moon represents yin. However, yin being more feminine, when you zoom into the moon, the phases of the moon are divided between yin and yang. So although the moon as a whole represents yin and energy, there are still aspects of yang within yin. So yang is characterized by doing, speaking, giving, and initiating. So the energy of the new moon then becomes yang energy as we're doing, initiating, speaking, and giving out the intentions that we want to set so that we're able to manifest. So it becomes an action-based practice for this phase in particular. So now in terms of how your ceremony should look, I find it something that you should play around with and just, adapt and change as you go and as you feel. In my case, I am a Taurus sun and a Libra moon. They're both ruled by Venus, so for me, aesthetics in particular that engage with all 5 of my senses are very important for me to ground myself within my body. I find that it allows me to stay within my body so that I'm able to listen to my intuition a bit better. And again, that might not be the case for you, but something I really do want to emphasize is that, you do see a lot of content online that has really beautiful, extravagant new moon and full moon ceremonies. And if that's within your means and if that's what you feel called to do, of course, by all means, go right ahead. I just really want to emphasize that it's absolutely not necessary to do the most when it comes to this. At the end of the day, all of those things external from us are tools that we use to ground us in our practices, but they are not what brings the manifestations or the intentions to fruition. That is completely up to us. All we need to set intentions and to manifest what we need to manifest is our own self-awareness, our own willingness to show up, and our own curiosity and courage to move forward. So it can literally be just very simple. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, and just play around and see what feels most natural to you. So with all of that being said, the action for the new moon is reconnecting with your body. And it is the most important practice to start off. And I found that was severely lacking in my previous ceremonies because I was just very much in my mind, very much like setting intentions through what I thought and not necessarily considering how I feel. So there are a few exercises that I would like to share with you that I find really help me reconnect with my body. And they're by Mark Rose. He's on Instagram. He's a human connection specialist, and I really recommend you check him out. I'll plug in his handle down below. If you're able to, he provides some really great workshops as well. I took his Rediscovering Your Wholeness workshop, and I've left with a lot, but I find myself consistently coming back to these 2 practices. So the first one is a set of 7 questions, and they're sentence stems, and they help us understand what's going on within our body. So I'm going to read out the questions for you. They're actually on my mirror, so I'm just going to read them out because I use them so often. And I'll also provide a text box somewhere around here so that you're able to pause it as well and you can write these questions down. So the first question you ask yourself is, right now I feel. Where I feel it in my body is. if that part of me could speak, it would say. Hearing that makes me feel. A truth I often ignore is. I'm afraid to acknowledge it because if I do, then. And then you sit with that. And it's so, so important that with sentence stems, you say the absolute first thing that comes to your mind. If you take 3 seconds to pause before you answer, you've already taken too long and your ego, your mind's already operating. It's a very intuitive based practice, so it means the first thing that comes up, say it. And just be very mindful, be very compassionate and gentle with yourself as it comes up, and allow and create space for whatever comes up to come up without judgment, without labeling it as a good or bad. Just stay curious and see what it could possibly mean for you in that process. I'm gonna drink some water. And another great exercise that Mark Groves provided in his workshop, and Ezzie Spencer actually provided the same one in her book, is writing a letter from your future self to your current self. And you're writing it from like a place where you've achieved absolutely everything that you've ever dreamed of, and you're describing it in detail. It's very important, again, that you don't allow your ego to get in the way of this. So don't limit yourself in terms of what you believe you can actually accomplish. Literally write exactly what it is that you want to accomplish, as impossible as it may sound. And also, do not be concerned around what you feel you deserve or do not deserve. Just write everything down, and as you're writing it, let it flow. And then when you're reading it again, approach it with curiosity and see what sensations come up in your body as you're writing it, so that way it can give you some clues around what it is that you should be like manifesting and what intentions you need to set to achieve that manifestation. So once you've done that, you can take a look at where your material reality and your dream world, where they're not matching up. And say you pick one aspect of it. You take that aspect, say you want greater financial abundance. You take that concept and you break it down to its smallest components. Once you've broken it down to its smallest components, you pick one of them. And you use that one part, even though, like, let's say you broke it down and there's 5 parts to it, you pick one of them and you focus your intention on that one. There are many, many moon ceremonies that happen, like there's one each month. So you'll have lots of opportunities to work with the rest of those aspects. But you just want to make sure that you're giving each part of your greater goal and manifestation the time and the consideration and care that it needs, so that you can nurture it properly. So you're setting a very strong foundation. So that is creating longevity. It's not a race to accomplish these things. And I know that for myself especially, I'm a Taurus sun, and the way that I navigate my world is very slow and steady, but I'm also very impatient and I want things to happen very quickly as well. I feel like that's a little bit of my Leo rising fire energy, where I want things right away. However, anything worth having takes time to develop, especially if you want to do it in a sustainable and a strong foundational way. So pick one of those aspects of your greater intention to work with. And once you've picked one, you want to set a feeling-based intention. So what that means is, again, like doing the practice of feeling the sensations in our bodies, you want to describe how you want to feel when you have it. So for example, with the example of financial abundance again, I want to feel expansion in my chest and lightness in my body as I receive greater abundance, versus I want to get a promotion at work. The latter is more of a goal and can definitely be included in your intention, but having a sensation-based intention allows your body to provide a compass of how close you're getting to the intentions that you're setting and what steps to take, so that you're not wandering aimlessly trying to figure out what steps you need to take to set that intention, because you'll know based on how you're feeling. If you're not feeling that, the steps you're taking are not aligned with the intention you've set, versus like, oh, I am feeling more expansion in my chest, I am feeling lighter in my body, this is moving me towards the intention that I did set. A great practice for that, I realized I didn't mention, in terms of how to feel sensations in your body, I like to do body scans. So I'll start at the crown of my head and I'll work my way all the way down to my toes. And during each body part, and I mean like each one, like my eyes, my nose, my mouth, my neck, my chest, my collarbones, my arms, like I'll just go down and pause through each body part, and I will do my best to recognize the sensation that I feel in that body part. It's actually quite normal to feel absolutely nothing as well, because the requirements of capitalism require us to push ourselves beyond our limits most of the time. Many of us have learned to numb ourselves completely to what our body is feeling. I find that for myself personally as well, and it's been a practice that I've been doing consistently, because sometimes I'm like down at my toes and I'm like, damn, I feel nothing. So it just really requires your compassion and patience as you learn to feel the sensations in your body again, and consistency. It has to be a consistent practice. Even just taking however much time you can spare in a day to do it daily will help you really ground yourself in your sensations. So once you've done your intention and you've picked a sensation that you want to feel in your body, once you've achieved that, and you can add whatever goal to accompany that as well, I really recommend that you either write it down, video or voice record your intention, so that it grounds it into your reality, and also so that you're able to refer back to it, because it will be a consistent practice that you do, is going back to the intentions that were set during the new moon phase to see how it's progressing and how you're feeling, and if it's still aligning with the remaining lunar phases up until the balsamic moon, which is the very end of the cycle before the next new moon. So that's the practice of the new moon. This will probably be the most in-depth video, because it is like the initiating process of the new moon. So the other ones will be slightly shorter practices. The next phase is a yang phase, so it's a more restful phase, and I will go more into that. So I hope that was helpful. Please comment down below if you have any more questions. I would also love if you could share your own grounding practices and your emotions and what you like to do, so that we can get more support and ideas of how we can better connect with ourselves and our emotions and our bodies, as well as how your moon ceremonies look, what you like to include, and what makes you feel grounded as you do them. So the next video will be a lunar forecast and a collective moon reading for the partial solar eclipse new moon in Taurus. That will be out tomorrow, so just keep an eye out for that, for how to best work with that energy, because it's actually quite in contradiction to what I explained today because of the solar eclipse, but I'll get more into that in the next video. So happy new moon, and I wish you the best in your intention setting process. Take care.